Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS Special Series 59 Days of Healing, where we explore one maxim from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 points for healing dualistic mind, each day, to integrate the practice into our lives. Today is day 47. We are in the midst of point 7, called Tips. Maxim 47 reads, sustain the unity of 3 things. This maxim is the last in the quartet of 3s, 4 maxims that talk about 3 things to align in a particular way. Today, we're going to look at sustaining the unity of 3 things: body, speech, and mind, or you could think of it as thought, word, and deed. We hear a lot about mindfulness as a meditative practice, and the common kinds of mindfulness practice that are available are different than what I want to talk about today. A kind of mindfulness, mind being full in the sense of holding the unity of intention, thought, attitude, and mindset. That's the sphere of mind within which we enact our deeds and speak our words. The unity of body, speech, and mind, or thought, word, and deed, is about our actions, speech, and mindset in alignment. Our mind is full in the sense of holding that multi-dimensional space with tenderness, care, curiosity, and so forth. We're not thinking one thing and saying another and doing a third. Not so much about multitasking as it is about all of our wavelengths harmonizing with one another. Our mindset isn't actually canceling out any positive actions we may be undertaking or words we are saying by having a negative attitude that goes with them, and vice versa. When we operate even for an hour with mind full of harmony between body, speech, and mind, we see what incredible power that yields. I encourage you to try it. It's a hard thing to step into long term for beginners like us. It's a hard thing to sustain. But what this maxim is doing is cheering us on. It's saying, you can do it. Do the best you can. And what happens is when our actions, our speech, and our mindset are in harmony, there's a natural flow of the deep wellspring of positivity, excellence, creative energy, and so forth. That is our true nature. There's nothing blocking or preventing it from coming forward. Our mindset doesn't cancel out our speech or our actions, or vice versa. We're in the flow of our true nature. Do the best you can. I know you can do it.
This is some great encouragement, and I can see how it does take some energy to sustain this alignment. Self-awareness seems to me to be a crux of this, because if we're not aware of what our mind is doing, then it's hard to have our body and speech aligned with that. Or we might not be aware of what we're saying and how it might be affecting other people or even our behaviors. But I feel like the mind is what is more often mysterious to us. And I know we talked a few slogans ago about not being passive aggressive. And that's one of those things that I feel like those kinds of behaviors or that kind of speech can show up more when things are outside of somebody's awareness. And so their behavior isn't really aligned with what they would want it to be. So I don't know. That's sort of what I'm thinking about with self-awareness being important. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
In many ways, all of the maxims in point 7 are similar to that. They're tips. They're guidelines for how we can move even deeper into the practice. To some extent, we already have to have a bit of a foothold on the practice to move deeper into them. I would say that while self-awareness is helpful on the level of encountering the practice or on a therapeutic level, I'd like to drop that self piece altogether and have the awareness be the issue. If we get too caught up in the self-awareness, oh, my wounds, oh, my growth, oh, my development, tunnel vision just takes over. This is describing something panoramic, expansive, and that is tempting us to go beyond the limits that self-awareness unconsciously places on us. When we develop awareness, and this is really keyed to our formal meditation practice, then we can fall back into a much more expansive mindset that is not diffuse in the sense of incapable of concentrating or being competent. It can still function, but at the same time, it has a much more vast scope than if we're too concerned about our self-awareness in the therapeutic sense. That can be very helpful, particularly if we have sore spots that still need some tending to. But what this maxim is inviting us to do is to start moving even past that. In other words, the maximum of what we can expect in the worldly context is always dwarfed by the greatness that we already are. These maxims and Buddhist practice are encouraging us not to settle for just the stuff that happens in the worldly context of things.
So that's an important clarification. I mean, awareness as panoramic and self-awareness being a little too narrow then, or maybe a lot too narrow, thinking about that. So I'm thinking in order to have body, speech, and mind aligned, that panoramic awareness, I can see how that can come from practice in a way. Are there particular ways that you would encourage people to really focus their awareness in that larger sense?
This is very hard to do without formal meditation practice. It's not impossible. And there are definitely ways you can take the formal practice into our lives, like these maxims. There's also a practice of what are called gathas in Sanskrit, short little sayings similar to the maxims that you can repeat to yourself as a way to keep aligned with the mindset. But I find that these kinds of instructions just become limiting. This is a huge practice. The Vajrayana practices of Tantric Buddhism are really centered on aligning body, speech, and mind. This is another one of those. I could spend 59 days on just this maxim because this unity of body, speech, and mind is one of the ways that the practice hooks us through healing and transforming and into transcending. It's one of the ways that we can start to glimpse a way of existing that is not limited by dualistic perception. I hesitate to give instructions outside of a formal practice or individual session, just because it's very easy to say, oh, well, that's all I have to do, and then go off. And there's so much more.
Thanks so much for that. This has been Yeshe and Tanya on day 47 of PRAJNA SPARKS special series, 59 Days of Healing. Tune in daily for more maxims from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 Points for Healing Dualistic Mind. Check the episode notes for more resources, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at PRAJNA SPARKS, and email us, sparks@prajnafire.com, with any questions. May all beings benefit.